This has got to be interesting. 7 signs you intimidate people without knowing it. I'm curious about
You walk
this
in.
because
You haven't said a
I got something to say, I guess. One of the things that, first thing that came to mind, one of the things I've learned in life is that majority of people feel intimidated when you ask questions, when you don't just go with the norm. Let's say you get a new job, and let's say that here, I don't know, come up with something. Let's say that you've got a forklift and it's perfectly good and it's sitting at the back of the barn or lot or warehouse or whatever. Let's say that you're moving pallets. Let's go back to barn. Let's say you work at a ranch and there's a forklift, there's a pallet, and you're having to unload feed and stack onto this pallet, and then you have to one by one move bags to another pallet or move to a different place, or let's say you got to carry them from one end of the barn to the other, just for story's sake. And something I've learned is if I walked into that job and I was like, hey, why don't we just use the forklift to pick up the pallet and move the whole pallet of feed over there? There could be a good reason why. I mean, the forklift could be broke, or maybe they had an experience where the forklift damaged the feed bags or something getting it from point A to point B. I don't know what the reason could be, but there could be a good reason why. But instead, most people like to get either A, offended, or B, intimidated. And intimidation is by far the worst, because when you ask questions, it makes them use their brain and go, hey, wait, why don't we use the forklift? Instead of just, giving a logical answer like, oh, the fuel pump went out, or tire's flat, or something like that, they get upset. They don't like when you ask questions. And that's something I've learned with people, is they don't like when you don't just go with the way things already are whenever you try to ask questions, because they expect you to be like, oh, well, why can't we fix the forklift? Or why, if there isn't a good reason, why aren't you using the forklift? Like, why would you do it bag at a time halfway across the barn or whatever? Or it could be anything, really. It's the questions, it's making them go out of the norm. And I think, I could be wrong, I'm not a psychologist or whatever, but I think that it activates their fight or flight mode. They don't know how to answer. They either want to fight or flight, like they want to run, but usually people in a manager position, they can't run, so it activates their fight. My opinion, my theory on it. But I want to know what these 7 signs are. I'll stop yapping.
a word. Someone across the room starts explaining a decision you never asked about. A colleague laughs a little too quickly. Your friend keeps glancing at you mid-sentence like they are checking if you approve. You didn't do anything. You were just there. And somehow that was enough. Most people
Might have that RBF going on.
think intimidation comes from aggression, from dominance, from someone loud who forces attention. But that is not what we are talking about.
Another thing I've noticed where intimidation comes from, where people get intimidated by other people, is the people that get intimidated are usually intimidated by people who are confident in themselves and are sure about themselves. Confident, like they don't have any confidence issues, and some other people get intimidated by that I've noticed.
About. There is a quieter kind of presence, one that doesn't demand attention but draws it anyway, one that doesn't threaten anyone and yet makes certain people uncomfortable without a single word. Psychologists call this nonverbal psychological dominance, and the people who have it almost never realize it. Here's what makes this strange. The people who have this effect are usually not the loudest. They are often the ones who feel invisible inside, who question themselves, who wonder why connection sometimes feels harder than it should. The same thing that unsettles
I have that issue, but it's just because I find that most people are really hard to talk to, because most people, they're just content with their day-to-day life, and they go to work, they come home, they go to sleep, they eat, they go to sleep, they get up, they go to work, they have a routine, and anything out of the routine is not of interest to them. So trying to talk about anything other than that, it's just like beating your head into a brick wall, like pulling teeth. It's just like there is no substance. They just don't care. And I have an interest in a lot of things that people don't like to talk about with me. So I end up staying silent a lot of times because people don't want to hear about it, which is one of the reasons I just, it's an outlet on here. I can talk about things or say my opinion and say my piece. And if you hear me, you hear me. If you don't, you don't. It's a good outlet for me. It's one of the reasons I could have named in one of my last videos about why I do YouTube. This is why. Well, one of the reasons why. But yeah, let me quit blabbing again.
Others is the same thing that isolates them. Psychologist Albert Mehrabian found that over 55% of communication is nonverbal. Before you speak, your presence has already said something. The question is what? These are the 7 signs. Sign 1. You don't seek approval and people feel it. There is something
That's confidence. That's what I was talking about a second ago. Confidence.
deeply unsettling about someone who genuinely does not need validation. Not because you are cold, because you are complete. And that kind of self-containment reads as quiet power. Sign 2. You are comfortable in silence. Most people rush to fill silence because it makes them anxious. You don't.
I've had to learn that over time. It started whenever I was a teenager. I had to learn how to just be content with silence because, well, to be frank with you, I was the kid that got bullied in school. So I quit talking to people at some point. I just gave up and I sat in silence because why would you talk to people who are mean, That's why I try not to partake in bullying. I can point out things that are like, oh man, I can see why. But as far as bullying, I don't really I believe that we should be bullying each other. I know a lot of people think that it builds character or, toughens you up a little bit, but there's a line, you know what I mean?
You can sit in it without needing to fix it. To you, it feels calm. To others, it feels unreadable, and that can feel threatening. Sign 3. People explain themselves around you without you asking. You ask a simple question and get long justifications. You were not judging. You were curious. But
Man, sometimes that's that questioning maybe that I was talking about. You're curious, so you ask a question, and then people automatically, maybe that's what it is. I've never put 2 and 2 together for it, but instead of, maybe they feel like I'm judging when I ask questions about things. It could be legit, like out of curiosity, and they're just like intimidated.
something in your presence makes people feel like they are being evaluated. Sign 4. You don't break eye contact first. Not as a power move. You are just present.
Okay, so the eye contact thing. There's some things that I had to deal with growing up. That gum lights every night. It's midnight. This is a midnight video. Let's get this back on before I lose my train of thought. And oh, get that back on. Oh, that's on Go Live. I don't know why. Kicked from session from sitting too long. Almost lost my train of thought. What? Yeah, I did. It was there and it's gone. Let's see what he said.
Sign 4. You don't break eye contact first.
Yeah, eye contact. So I had some things going on as a young teenager, child, all the way as far back as I can remember. It was really hard to break. I'm not going to go into too much detail in this video about what happened, but I did have to go through some physical, mental abuse kind of stuff growing up, whether my parents want to admit it or not, but the facts are facts, right? So it took a long time to where I would look people in the eye. Even to this day, I find myself like looking away sometimes. And so I have to consciously, like, maybe not as a power move, but I have to consciously, like, hold that eye contact so I don't look weak. So it's not really as a power move, it's as a don't look weak move. Maybe that's one and the same. But I really had to learn how to do that because it was hard, and it still is sometimes. Way better about it now than I used to be. But breaking that eye contact is something that I used to just turn my head and look down or look somewhere else, or just anything to make, keep from making eye contact because of the things that I had to endure. Anyways, let's go on with this eye contact.
Not as a power move. You are just present. But real eye contact makes people feel seen, and not everyone is comfortable with being seen. Sign 5. You say no without over-explaining. Most people soften their no. They apologize or add reasons. You don't. You say no because that is your answer. That kind of clarity is rare, and it unsettles people who are not used to it. Here's where it shifts. Because everything so far sounds like strength, and it is. But there is another side. The same presence that gives you quiet power can also make you feel alone, because people project onto what they can.
They say about it's lonely at the top, and usually it's in reference to wealth and success, but to me it goes further. It's lonely at the top, meaning it could be wealth or success, or it could be knowledge, or it could be confidence, or whatever. It could be anything. If you're at the top of your hill, you're likely the only one up there. It's lonely at the top.
Cannot read, and what they project is often fear. Sign 6. You make people feel exposed without trying. You observe more than you speak. You notice what others miss. And people...
I just thought that was like an ADHD trait where you notice like everything. I'll be watching movies and I'll notice like the cup on the shelf in the background. If it's empty or full, I'm like supposed to be watching the characters, and not the background. But I watch the characters in the background, and I watch the animals or the trees moving or which way the wind's blowing it, or I kind of take everything in, and I don't have to look at one thing for very long. I know that in this set, without even looking again, I've glanced and I looked at the camera. There's 2 lights at the top. There's a bar that goes across. There's a guy talking. He's got his hand pointed. There's 2 chairs. There's a stage. There's curtains. Yeah. Oh, I missed the guy on the left. I guess I didn't look long enough. But and there's a door there. But that's what I do. I glance. I notice everything, and my brain kind of like sets it in. It's sometimes on second glance I can see things, but for the most part I just glance, and that's what it is.
People who are performing feel that instantly, not because you judge them, but because your awareness removes the mask. Sign 7. And this one might surprise you. You feel everything more deeply than most people know. Behind the calm, behind the silent.
They think that we're like emotionless most of the time. They think that we're cold, hard, RBF, like we just I don't know what the male equivalent is, but just that resting face that looks like you're smug, I have that. I have to forcefully another thing, I think it goes back to my childhood stuff that I was talking about earlier, is I have a hard time expressing emotion. Sometimes I think that I am on the spectrum for Asperger's disease, or whatever that is, because I align very closely with a lot of the traits that they have. But the other thing that I look at, it maybe it's not Asperger's, maybe it's from the trauma that I grew up with, or maybe a little of both. I don't know. But I do have issues with that. So
There is someone who processes the world at a depth that can be exhausting. You notice what is not said. You feel shifts in energy. You pick up on what others ignore. Psychologists
oh man, I'm always trying to read the room, and not even on purpose. It just usually I can tell a situation's bad before it gets bad somehow. People are like, "What are you, psychic?" And I'm like, "No, I just like I know I see the demeanor of people. I see the energy. I feel it."
just call this high sensory processing sensitivity. It means your nervous system takes in more than average. And that is
Once again, I thought that was just like ADHD.
why your presence carries weight, because depth is felt before it is understood. People do not always know why they react to you. They just know something is different. You were never trying to intimidate anyone. You just stayed real in a world that rewards performance. You stayed present when others pretended. You did not adjust yourself just to fit in. And that alone was enough to unsettle the room. You are not too much. You are not difficult. You are not cold. You just forgot to pretend. Drop a comment below which of
I'm not gonna lie, that last what is that? Let's just say 45 seconds to a minute. That last bit there sounded exactly like ChatGPT. Call a spade, I guess.